Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'm going to be working with the Spellbinders Geranium flower, and I think Antique Bucket is the name of the die set. It's another by Susan Tierney-Cockburn in the Garden Club by Susan collection, and she makes wonderful flower forming die sets. They are so realistic, and especially when you watch her tutorials, she definitely puts in a lot of details. I'll probably be deviating a little bit, but for this one in particular, because the geranium flower is one that I'm not super familiar with, so I did watch her tutorial. And I started off by just adding some Nuvo drops to these stems as per the recommendation of Susan, because you'll want those to dry fully before you put the little sort of petal detail onto them. And then I've got this bucket here that has 3 dies in the die set to assemble it. So you've got your main bucket, and then the handle, that is, I guess you could make it whatever you want, but I die cut it out of silver pearlescent to make it a more metal looking, and then the little handle itself I die cut out of brown again to make that sort of more wood like. And I'm playing with this metallic silver paint that I got from Little Birdie Crafts. This is the first time I'm using it, so I just wanted to just play with it, see how it works, how much of a shine you get from it, and it's really nice. Especially if you do several coats, you can really get a nice shiny metallic. And you do have to stir this pot before you start using it, because it did settle and separate a little bit. And so after stirring with the other end of my paintbrush, I just wiped off that paint that was stuck to my paintbrush onto this paper liner, and just adding some silver detail to the bucket. So I added a little bit of silver to the handle on the side there, and then a little bit of silver to these 2 sort of rounded lines, which I'm guessing is sort of that silver strapping that kind of connects all the slats, the wooden slats together. And the leftover paint I just painted onto a scrap piece of cardstock that I'll just die cut from later, so no need to waste any of that beautiful metallic paint. I've gone ahead and die cut the recommended number of die cuts from the set, and I used cream color. It's hard to tell that it's not white, but it's more of an off-white cream. But I'm using some dye ink. Actually, this is a hybrid ink, I think, from Nuvo. And I'm just gonna brush on a little bit of pink in the center. So I did Google a search on geraniums just to get some inspiration on colors and, what a geranium looks like, because it's not a flower that I grow, or I've probably seen it. I just don't recognize it. But what's nice about the dye that comes in this set is that one die plate will actually cut out 3 flowers in 2 separate sort of pieces. So one die plate will actually yield 6 die cuts, but those 6 die cuts get combined to create 3 flowers. And one of the die cuts will be 2 petals, and the other die cut has 3 petals. I did have to watch Susan's tutorial to see how these fit together, because there is an actual sort of configuration that that if you apply it in, they fit a lot better together and more give you a more rounded shape. But I'll get to that a little bit later when we start to put those together. For now, I'm going to go ahead and give some shape to these green pieces that I've die cut. So this one, I don't know the proper name for it, but it's basically just like a landing pad for where you're going to put your geranium flower petals. And then these are the actual leaves. I think die cut twice as many as I think I'll need, so I may not use everything, but it really just depends on your project, how full of a bucket you want to make, and what sort of flower configuration you want to have. For the leaves, I did die cut this out of it's actually a pattern paper. It's got some stripe detail to it, which I think just adds to, that texture. And I just do some really simple cupping from the back just to make it a little bit rounded. And then I flip it over to the front, and then I just draw some lines from the outer edge into the center, and that brings those leaves inward and just adds some kind of detail to them. Now, the die itself does have some debossed detail, so to sort of show you where the veins are. I didn't really follow that because it was hard to see on the pattern paper that I used. So, but you definitely could sort of use those lines and draw right over them to really emphasize them. I'm using my pan pastels to add some color detail to these leaves because when I looked up geraniums, some of them have this red circular ring on the green leaves, which I thought was really, really unique. And so I wanted to mimic that with my pan pastels. And I'm adding a lighter green to the outer edge just to give some shadow, some highlights to these leaves and make them feel a little bit more dimensional. And I thought that it turned out really well. I was really surprised by, how the geranium flowers actually look, and that little red detail. I don't know if that's something that's pretty signature to the geranium, but I thought I would add it because it seemed really unique to me. So with the flower petals, I'm again going to do some really simple shaping. So I'm going to cup from the back. So cupping is just using your ball stylus and in this round sort of circular motion, bringing in the edges of your petals so that they curl up a little bit. Again, I'm working from the back of my flower petals first. And with this first pass, I'm using, probably the largest stylus size that I'll use, and it helps to soften the papers, start to form that shape, curling those edges down. And then I'll flip the flower petal over, and as you can see here, I'll do some more cupping in the center, which then just brings those petals up and inward. And so because these are such small petals, I don't think they need too much more shaping than this. And I would definitely recommend checking out Susan's tutorial. I don't have her flower forming tool set, so if you do, you may want to actually check out how she shapes her flowers, because of course she designed these dies, so she knows how they're intended to be shaped and what the final look should be. Of course, they're your flowers, so you can definitely just make them look however you like. So that's the beauty of, forming your own flowers, because you can use your own techniques, whatever works for you, and suits whatever tools you happen to have. I've just got this piece of leftover pattern paper. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's from a Kaiser Craft paper pad called Wandering Ivy, and the last time I checked to see if it was still available for sale, I couldn't find it anywhere. But I'm sure there are lots of other papers out there that have a similar look in terms of having these sort of wood panels. And I like that there's the wood paneling in two directions. So there's one going horizontal, which I think is a nice sort of platform to sit my bucket onto, and then one that has the planks going vertical up and down, so almost like it's a wall. So I'm going to start off by attaching the handle to my bucket, and I'm going to put some liquid adhesive along the outer edge, but I'm going to use some 3D glue gel from Kalal to give this bucket a little bit of dimension, so it's got a little bit of curvature to it. And I left the upper sort of portion of the bucket that's at the front. I left that open so that I can tuck behind it if I need to. Now I'm going to start off by doing the same thing or something similar here with these little sort of pads, flower pads, I don't know. And they are going to have a little bit of that curvature and dimension so that our flowers pop up a little bit. So I'm going to put some glue gel along the edges, but I'm going to put a big blob of it in the center so that it holds that center up a little bit higher than the edges. So those are just going to be essentially a platform for where I'm going to attach my flowers. I'm going to start off though by attaching the leaves onto the front of my bucket here. And so these are, it's really nice that we get a couple different sizes. So there you can see that one I tucked into the bucket to give some dimension. And you could also place some on the upper portion as well, where your flowers are going to be in order to kind of fill that out. I think the next time I use this die set, that's what I'm going to do. So now initially here, I didn't pay attention to where or how these were supposed to be oriented. So you can tell with that first flower, it's not super rounded. And I did pause in the middle while I was making this to just look up Susan's video tutorial and see how I'm supposed to fit these together. And that's when I learned that there is an actual sort of configuration that you'll want to use in order for these two die cuts to kind of fit in well together. And basically, you're looking for the to put the petal that has 2 petals, or the die cut that has 2 petals. You want to put that down first, and when you do the cupping in the center here, there's going to be one edge that looks more sort of V-shaped and curves up a little bit more, and you want that to kind of be pointed upward. So you can start to see here that these flowers start to look a lot better positioned now, because by this point I had looked up how these were supposed to fit together. And when you apply the die cut that has 3 petals on them, there's actually 2 petals that look like they are a little bit closer together. Those point downward. And so when you configure these in that way, then you get a much rounder floral shape. So something to pay attention to, because otherwise it can look a little bit oddly shaped. So here's a freeze frame of the 2 petal piece. To the left, that's sort of the V, as if the V were pointing towards the left. So that's going to, when you orient this onto your card, you want to put that pointed upwards. And then when you go to place your second petal, the one that has, or die cut, the one that has 3 petals on it, then I'll show you a freeze frame of that as well. So there you can see that's pointed upwards. And then the petal that has, the die cut that has 3 petals on it, hopefully you'll get a freeze frame here soon. There's that. So you can see that there's 2 petals that kind of curve downward, and it's actually right now pointing to the up and to the right. So those are the 2 petals that will actually point downwards when you go to actually apply this, because you can see those 2 are curving towards each other, and they are a little bit closer to one another. So I always grab the other one and attach that to my project that way. So hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, maybe check out Susan's tutorial because she explains it as well. But I think that's an important thing to note. That's why I've kind of repeated it a couple times, because otherwise the shape of the flower doesn't quite fill out without actually orienting these 2 pieces in that very specific way. So I really love how this turned out because it looks so realistic, and it's just amazing how Susan designs these die sets. So with the stem piece here, we've got our little flower buds on here, but she even has a die plate that you can cut sort of the I'm sure that there's a more specific name for these, but I've just die cut it out of a lighter shade of green to sort of suggest that this is a more like a younger leaf. And I just use my ball stylus I didn't even really cup, I just pressed down to give it some shape, because these are actually going to cover our flower buds, and it's as if it's that piece that sort of protects the flower before it's bloomed, and later after it's bloomed it becomes that little just that little piece of greenery that's sitting right below the flower bud. So all of this detail is just amazing to me. She must really know her flowers, Susan. And so when you look closely, you'll see the red of the nouveau drops inside of this little bud. And it's just got so much dimension and so much realism. So I did make 2 of them, but I think I'm only going to put 1 onto my project here. And that pretty much completes my project. I thought about adding a sentiment to it, but I decided against it. Oh, I forgot. I did also take Susan's suggestion of adding some prills to the center of the flowers. So I got these also from Little Birdie Crafts. I'll leave a link to everything that I used in my in the description box below if you're curious to check out any of these products. But the prills are just these little teeny tiny sort of seed beads that I'm just using my little gem picker to dot into the center. And I put 3 in each of the flower centers just to fill it out a little bit more. I initially was gonna vary it and maybe put 2 or 1 to 3 of them, but I felt like 1 and 2 just didn't look right, and 3 was the perfect number, so that's what I ended up doing for all of the flowers. That's why I kept on pulling out more, because I went back, and the ones that I had only put 1 or 2 in, I filled them in with a third. So that's my, now that's my project complete, and I really love how these flowers turned out and how realistic these geraniums are, especially once you key into the fact that, those flower die cuts need to be oriented in a very specific way. So I hope that you like this project, and if you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you want to catch new videos as I publish them, click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Thank you so much, and until my next video, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!